So a lot of people have been asking for a video to share with how my pregnancy went and labor and everything afterwards, having to deal with all the legal issues and just being so young and alone during it. I wasn't alone, but I didn't have the father with me, so I missed that emotional connection that we had while I was pregnant, and on top of all the hormones, I was just a complete mess the whole entire time. I was sick for about 6 months of my pregnancy, so pretty much from the moment we found out, I was just not feeling good. We had went to the ER because I was pretty sure I had like an ulcer or some sort of appendix rupture. So we went there and they were going to do a CT, but before they could do that, they had to do a pregnancy test, and that had came back positive. So they canceled the CT and they sent me straight to the ultrasound room, which they did an ultrasound, and they found out I was about 6 weeks, but they didn't confirm it till I went to the OB later that day. So pretty much the whole thing was just kind of a blur. I don't remember much from the day, but just a few things like telling my dad and telling the father of the baby. So pretty much telling my dad was the first time I'd ever seen him cry. I don't think he was mad at me as much as he was mad at the father of the baby because of what I now had to go through and what just kind of disappointment, I guess, just kind of sad for me. And then telling the father of the baby, he was kind of shocked. He didn't really expect it, but I mean, I had been talking to his dad the day before. We were on Lake Michigan in Chicago watching the air show, and I was sitting on a tube because I hadn't been feeling good, and so they were like, get in the water, it'll help. And he was talking to me and he was like, well, what do you think is wrong? And I was telling him either like an ulcer or my ruptured appendix, but inside I knew that there was a good chance I was going to be pregnant, but I didn't want to share that with him because I was afraid that things would turn out bad for the day. And I know the father of the baby and his dad were both really excited about that day, going to the air show and everything, so I didn't want to ruin that by staying. So I just kind of stood off to the side and stayed quiet. I slept, which made me feel a little bit better, but I mean, there's not much you can do when you're sick and on a boat. So a lot of the problems I had was with eating because I would get Jack didn't like most of the food I ate. I mean, I had an Arby's milkshake. That was probably the first thing I could keep down without throwing up, which was a reassuring sign, I guess. But, you know, milkshakes aren't exactly good nutrition for raising or growing a baby. But, so it was a lot of eating and just throwing up and then eating again. So I had something for Jack to get nourishment from. Just everything was kind of a blur for the 9.5 months that I was pregnant for. I mean, about, I don't know, probably when I was 13 weeks, that's when me and the father of the baby stopped talking. We were dating. We'd been friends for about 2 years, and then we dated off and on, but the period that we were dating when I got pregnant, had been dating for like 8 months, so it was not super serious, but long enough to, you know, have a strong emotional bond between each other. So I think the part that hit me hardest was getting broken up with, because it wasn't directly to me. Our parents met and they talked, and he had broken up with me and told his parents, and then his parents told mine and then told me. So it wasn't direct, and then I didn't hear anything from him for the rest of the pregnancy. Well, not the rest, but a good portion of it. And so I was there at home, sick, dealing with everything and being without someone to just lean on. in the way that I needed. And so the doctor's appointments, I'd go with my mom, and we'd sit and just do everything, but it just wasn't the same as it would be with having the father of my baby there. I feel like the pregnancy would have been a little bit easier, even though I'm 14, it was 13 at the time, but just with everything, I just missed the bond we had. I mean, it's something you can't really get back, and the relationship could never be the same. I mean, after what he put me through, and I mean, on some parts what I put him through, but I don't really regret what I did, because the only thing serious that I did was I didn't get an abortion, which is what they had felt was best for us so we could live a normal childhood or our teenage years out. But I mean, I've had him, he's 2 months old now, and I feel like it's better than living and being a teenager and doing all the stupid things that we do, because even though it was a pretty big kind of hiccup in my lifeline and my plan for myself, it's not really changed any determination that I've had. I've not really wanted or missed any of the school that I did. I did online school, which I'm kind of behind on because I would have to lay down, or if I sat up, I'd contract, so I couldn't start to do school laying down. Which I did an online program where I could go at my own pace, so I have about half a semester to finish, and then I'll be done with my year. And then in the fall, I'll be starting an alternative school, so I'll go half days, and from like 7:45 or 8:45 to 11:45, so 3 hours. And my mom's gonna watch Jack in the mornings, and everything will work out fine. But it's still hard. I mean, it was hard doing school because I just had no determination. I wanted to lay down and fold into a pile on the floor, which, if anyone has tried to do that, it's very hard to do with a big belly. So that didn't really work out for me. I did luck out. I wasn't very big. I mean, I didn't probably start showing till around Christmas, and that was when it got harder to, you know, hide, because I wasn't, it's not that I wasn't proud. I was just nervous about what sort of comments I would get from people, and just now that I have him, I know it doesn't matter, but at the time, I had all these emotions, and I was worried about how it would look and how my body would be afterwards, because I'd worked really hard to get into the shape I was in, and it's not quite the same, but I've bounced back pretty good. I know the highlight of my pregnancy was when I went to my 20-week ultrasound, and I found out the gender, and when he was a boy, it was the most reassuring thing to me, because let me tell you, I do not know what to do with a girl. And, you know, I didn't get to share that moment with the father, but my mom was there, my aunt was there, and so it made everything a little bit better. I mean, my aunt and my mom were just there for me all the time, whatever I needed, which I really, really appreciated, because I would not be able to do what I'm doing if I didn't have the parents that I did, because they've just helped with everything. I mean, I can't work, I'm not legally old enough, so without them, I wouldn't be able to have Jack. I would have to I'd have to put him up for adoption, I mean, but I'm glad I didn't have to. It was on the table for about a week or two, but it was just, at the time, something I had considered, but then when I realized that he needed me and I was his lifeline, because he was growing inside of me, that I had to be there for him. And I'm really glad that I chose that, because I don't know what I'd be doing today if I didn't. I know I had gotten a lot of people asking me after I had gotten pregnant and stopped going to public school, because it was about 2 weeks into school, not even, when I had stopped going. I mean, it was the day after I found out that we went to the school, and we explained everything to them, and got everything situated, and then I got enrolled into the online school. But everyone was just asking, and I didn't know how to tell people, so for the longest time, it was probably to about 29 weeks, I had just said, no, I'm not pregnant, or if something's going on, I'll tell you if it's your business, which I kind of regret, but at the same time, right then and there, I needed to focus on protecting myself, and I knew that if it had gotten into the wrong hands, the information, that things could have turned bad for me, because I was already kind of facing loneliness, but I didn't want to put bullying on top of that, because I know a lot of people, it's kind of a shock for them. But I mean, it was a shock I had to get over quick, because I had someone depending on me to build them as a human. So I mean, the first thing I did when I found out he was a boy was we got the ultrasound pictures, and we went shopping for boy stuff, and we got a cake. I mean, we didn't want it to be a surprise for me and my mom and my aunt, but for my siblings and my dad, we did. So we just got a cake, and we put "it's a boy" on it. We didn't have time for the bakers to do the whole surprise thing with pink or blue on the inside, because it wasn't super important, I guess, but I just wanted it to be a small surprise. So we had gotten a box and put "it's a boy" balloon inside, and then we got some baby clothes, some little boy onesies with little dinosaurs on them and trains and stuff like that. I don't have any of them anymore because he grew out of them. He grew so fast. He's in like his 3-month clothes, his size 2 diapers, and he's only like 2 months old. So he's grown pretty fast, but I mean, it was hard doing it alone without the emotional support from the dad, because we had been so close that I just didn't know what to do. I mean, after he broke up with me, I probably laid on the couch for a week and just cried. I mean, it was a low time for me, but I mean, what else could I have done? I was 13, having a baby, didn't have the father there with me. We were very close at the time, and they were like family. It just, everything was cut off. It's like losing 3 members of your family in a matter of seconds. I mean, it was like 10 words and then they were gone. Everything went okay until with the pregnancy, besides the horrible sickness. It wasn't just morning sickness, it was all day. At night, I'd wake up in the morning, I'd throw up, I'd eat something, I'd throw it up, I'd eat another thing just to try and get anything down. Pretty much the only thing I could eat was like popsicles or salad. So not really super filling, but it worked for Jack, so we kept it like that. Things went pretty good till about 29 weeks when I went into premature labor. They ended up being able to stop it because I was at the doctor's office, they were running some blood tests, and then I just passed out, and they really don't know why, but they found high protein in my urine, and I was having contractions, but they weren't regular enough for me to be delivering right then and there. So they kept me in the hospital for, I think, 8 days. So it was like the end of January to the beginning of February. Which that was a pretty scary time, which was the first time we had talked to the father of my baby and his family, because we wanted to let them know that if anything was going to happen, so they'd be prepared, because at that point my due date was April 17th when we had first found out, but it changed really quick. I did end up making it full term, but just being in the hospital and being without him was a hard time. I was just a wreck. They had to give me all sorts of things like Ambien and Benadryl and steroids just to get me to go to sleep. And one night I was just such a mess that they ended up giving the steroids to mature Jack's lungs for me, so we would be able to deliver and he'd be better. At that point they would have said he'd be in the NICU and either intubated or have an oxygen mask and probably have an NG tube, which was pretty scary. They gave me a tour of the NICU just in case that I was to deliver. My social worker, Kate, she was super nice, super helpful, just helped me kind of feel better about everything. We had finally talked to the father, and he came to the hospital 2 days, I think, his family. It wasn't very long. It was maybe for an hour or 2 hours at the time. So we could just talk and he could be there for me, which it wasn't the same as if he were to be there the whole entire time for all 8 days and just helping me through everything, because I mean, I was having contractions, but I couldn't feel them because they were so mild but strong enough to push Jack out. So it was just confusing. I didn't know what was happening. So after 8 days, and they collected my urine for 24 hours and retested it and everything, they found out I had a short cervix, which it was supposed to be like 8 or 4 centimeters, and it was like 0.8 centimeters. So it was pretty short by a lot. So they just told me to be careful with everything, not do anything too strenuous. And so I did that, and I made it all the way to April 12th, which was 5 days before his due date. He was born 6 pounds, 15 ounces, 18.5 inches long at 7:48 a.m. So my labor was, we went to the hospital around 6:30, and then I delivered at 7:48 the next day, so it was about 12 hours. It was okay, and I was able to handle it till they broke my water, because my water hadn't broke yet. I was just having the contractions, and then I was able to, you know, talk through them. I was meditating, just keeping calm. But after they had broken my water, the contractions got so much worse, and I had, I think, Narcan, something along those lines, to help, but all that was doing was just making me fuzzy.
Are you making your video?
I was like 20 minutes in, Mom. I'm gonna kill you.
I was just gonna lay him down because he's super heavy.
So after I had gotten the Narcan or whatever it was about maybe an hour till I had to push, because at that point I was like 7 centimeters dilated, and it got to the point where I did decide to get an epidural, which was a lifesaver for the maybe 15 minutes it worked. But by the time they had called the anesthesiologist and brought her up, and she had explained everything and then put the epidural in, it was like 30 minutes till it was time to push, and probably an hour went by before when they had last checked my cervix, and then after the epidural they checked me again, and I was 10 centimeters, and they were like, you can push. So I really didn't have the epidural help with the contractions. It just helped with pushing and not being able to feel it, which helped a lot because I don't know what I would do if I was able to feel that. So I pushed for about 30 minutes. It was like 5 big pushes, which was shorter than most people, especially for their first baby. So I got really lucky with that. I didn't tear, I didn't have any bleeding. Well, I had bleeding because, you know, human fell out of me, but I mean nothing where I was having stitches or anything like that. I had like a little burn-ish area, but I mean that went away after 2-3 weeks maybe. So it wasn't anything I couldn't handle. I was strep B positive, so they had me in the hospital for 78 hours. During the labor, the father was there, but I mean, he was sitting on his phone for 12 hours, and he went to his car and took a nap while I was contracting. So not really a great experience for labor, but my aunt was there and my mom was there. And so they helped me get through it, and while he was sitting on his phone across the room not talking to me for 12 hours, they helped with everything. I mean, I get it. He's nervous. He's 15. I wouldn't know what to say if someone was contracting and in labor in front of me either. So, I mean, what can I say? It went pretty good. When it did come time to push though, I had originally said he could be in the room, but I mean after he sat there for 12 hours, didn't rub my back, hold my hand, help me breathe through anything, I was just like, no. So it was just my aunt and my mom in there while I was pushing, and of course all the doctors, which the nursing assistant, it was her first baby catch, so that's something. It went pretty good, and the moment that I saw him and heard him cry and they put him on me was just a life-changing moment. I mean, it's something with your first child that I'm sure will be different if I have more children. Not that I really plan on it, but it was just the most special moment I've ever had. I mean, if you ask your parents or your friends about it, it's just, after all the work you go through for those 9-10 months, it makes it all worth it, because you finally get to meet your precious baby. And just everything was perfect for those 78 hours that I was there in the hospital. I mean, I had a couple visitors, not too many, but you know, just I do regret having some, because my ideal birth plan and, you know, after birth plan was to just be me and then, you know, my mom and my family there, but they did bring visitors, so I wasn't able to just hold Jack the whole entire time and just bond with him. I mean, we bonded, but it wasn't how really I pictured it. But I mean, everything went fine. He was healthy. He wasn't jaundiced or anything. He didn't have to stay for any long period of time. They just had to keep him for 72 hours, 72, 78, something like that, instead of 24, because he was strep B positive and they wanted to make sure he didn't get sick. So after that, everything was fine, and the father was not there the whole time. It was probably 2 times he visited. It wasn't for very long either time. I mean, one of them we had a dinner that the hospital had provided us with. It was a nice steak. It was delicious, but I mean, he sat on his phone for most of it, so kind of ruined that moment. But I mean, again, he's 15, didn't really know what to do. We hadn't talked for 9 months, so I mean, it'd be kind of awkward to just sit there in silence. Better do something on your phone than stare at a blank hospital wall. I would say that the hardest part of after the delivery was when Jack was about 5 days old and the father had asked for visitation, and they had came over 1 or 2 times before, but they said I hovered, and so that's why they wanted to take my 5-day-old baby away from me, because I hovered over my newborn after the 9 months of hell I'd been through. I mean, who wouldn't hover? Even parents who have a perfectly normal, healthy marriage and have their baby and nothing's wrong. I mean, they hover. It's just first-time parents. So I got a lawyer, and everything was just crappy. I mean, the lawyer had told me that in the future with court, if I wanted any sort of leeway or wiggle room, that I would have to let Jack go over there without me because I hovered over my newborn. So it was 2 hours, 3 times a week. The first day, it was just, I was a wreck. I mean, I got ice cream, but there's only so much ice cream can do for a girl. We didn't talk whenever I dropped him off. He was like, don't come up to the house, I'll come to the driveway and get him. So it wasn't exactly how I pictured our first time as a family being. It was those 15 seconds they were at the car door and taking him. So, it was just a crappy way to have a baby. I mean, I love him, and there's nothing I wouldn't do for my baby, but I regret reaching out to them in January because I think things would have been easier if he just wasn't involved, because I mean, now we've spent time as a family together once, which was the one time they let me come over after I had started breastfeeding, because I didn't have a pump yet. I didn't have enough milk for anything to send over. So they let me come over once, and it was just not how I wanted our first time as a family to be. I mean, we barely talked. I was there mostly just to feed him. I mean, he was in the other room. I just stayed and talked to his mom. I mean, it was just horrible, not gonna lie. And then, so after that, they didn't let me come over anymore. So I've not gotten to be with him and Jack as a family at all. So, I mean, I really wish we would be able to, because who am I to take away those family memories that I have, or take away those memories from Jack, similar to those that I have with my family, because, I mean, at this point, he'll never get them if we only spend, like, a minute together. Switching from, I bring him to the door, I pick him up from the door, and it's just simple, how's your day, see you Tuesday, or whatever. I mean, just nothing quality. But so we did have a paternity test done because the father didn't believe that it was his for the longest time, which, I mean, I never cheated, nothing ever like that, so it was just his own, I mean, he just didn't trust me, which hurt because we were dating for a long time, and I thought he loved me, but apparently he could leave me in a matter of a day after finding out that we were gonna have a baby together. Things have gotten a little bit better. We're able to at least have somewhat decent conversation. I mean, we don't talk any more than we have to, but we've not had an argument in like 5 days, maybe, which is a pretty good time. We were going to have a baby shower after because I didn't want to do it while I was pregnant because I just wasn't up for it. So we had planned it and everything. It was supposed to be on Cinco de Mayo, you know, have a taco bar and everything. And then like a week beforehand, they were like, our lawyers said it's not a good idea. So I got uninvited from my own baby shower, which the invitations had said honoring Emily and Chris. So that was a hard time. They still had me drop him off and then pick him up. So, I mean, it was kind of awkward being uninvited from your own baby shower. I mean, typically guys don't have them. I mean, he's there 6 hours a week. I mean, how much can you need for an infant there 6 hours a week? But, I mean, it's whatever. It's just not what I wanted for my first family. I mean, hopefully things will get better and we can at least make up to being friends. So that way Jack can spend time with both of us when he's older and able to remember things. I mean, as of now, it's not what I had wanted for Jack because he doesn't really know who his dad is. I mean, he's 2 months. He knows me and my parents, and that's about it. I mean, he's the people he's with most, and he knows he can depend on. But yeah. So, I mean, it's not something super ideal that I'd wish on anyone, even my greatest enemy, but yeah. So that's how the past 12 months of my life have been. It's just arguing and being sick, and then the brief 5-day period where everything was bliss and I had my baby and he was new and had that fresh baby smell, and I just held him as tight as I could for as long as I could till he was taken away. I mean, it was 2 hours, which doesn't seem like a lot, but when your baby's 8 days old, it seems like a lifetime. I wish that we were able to, you know, spend time as a family and just kind of bond. I mean, there's none of that. Nothing. I mean, on Mother's Day, I didn't even get a Happy Mother's Day. I've not gotten a, you did so great during labor or anything. It was, he stayed for like 30 minutes after the baby was born, and then he left and didn't come back till the next day at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And then he stayed for like 2 hours, like enough to give him a bottle. And I mean, his loss, I guess. He doesn't come over. He says he's uncomfortable, which, I mean, if he's uncomfortable at my house, he's uncomfortable. I mean, it's where his child lives. It's his home. But, I mean, I know he does want more time with Jack, but there's only so much a nursing baby, so long a nursing baby can be away from his mother. I mean, I'm his food. I will say that I did get postpartum depression. I've not told very many people this, I mean, outside of like 2 people. I've not told any of my friends, so this is the first time really anybody's hearing about it. Which is something that a lot of people keep to themselves, like I did, but I've been reading about it, and it's something that I feel needs to be brought out more and talked about more, because it happens to so many women, and especially being young, you're at higher risk for it, which basically it's just like someone stealing all of your motivation and leaving you there to just, I mean, the only thing I wanted to do was hold my baby and lay on the couch, which that wasn't what I needed to do. I needed to finish school so that way I could build a future for me and him. But, I mean, I did get some medication to help, which I think it's doing a little bit. It's not super helpful. I mean, it's not really kicked in yet, but it has been helping a little bit. I feel better. I'm able to do more things. I have some motivation. I go places now. But I didn't realize it until about a month and a half postpartum. I mean, I knew I was probably going to get it. I was like, after all I've been through, some sort of depression isn't going to really be a surprise to me. So, I mean, it's not really anything I can handle, or not that I can handle it. It's not really something I can control. I mean, depression just comes on. I mean, after the emotional trauma I went through, it's pretty much expected. Things have gotten better. I mean, I do things, I'm not super back to my normal routine of going places and hanging out with people, but I mean, it's enough for what I'm comfortable with right now, being a new mom and figuring out how to parent and doing it just me. And I mean, I have my parents to help me, but something I just want to do on my own, or I'd rather learn with the father of my baby, but it's not an option. So I go to his doctor's appointments with him. The father isn't there. I mean, I tell him what happens, and most times he's busy or doing something, but I mean, it is what it is. So that's my story of my pregnancy as a young mom. I hope you guys enjoyed. Also, if you guys have any comments or questions or ideas for a video, another video, please post them below.